So we were talking about code and creating a code capsule. And one of the concerns that researchers might have is when we develop code, it might not be clean. So do you have any recommendations, and what are the expectations in terms of how the code should be organized? And is there any expectations from how professional it should be?
Well, I echo your opinion that research code, mine included, tends to be less clean than production code. As a journal, however, we don't have any policies on enforcing certain standards, as they tend to be subjective and people disagree on them all the time, even within one programming language. So you can imagine with all the languages that we support, there are many, many more potential issues there. If you were to really press me on the matter and say, Enric, give me one good advice, then I would probably say, provide proper documentation, comment your code as extensively as possible. That's the one thing I think helps in any language, in any situation. Other than that, I think, we can leave it to the authors to know what good code is. In a similar way, they also know what good scientific writing is. We all kind of know what good code is and what isn't. And I also think you know that your code is going to be available for perpetuity, right? So it's going to be publicly visible. So I hope that also provides an extra, let's say, incentive or an extra push for people to really pay attention to their code.
So from an editor perspective, do you have specific expectations in terms of the code? What will make it easy for you to make your job easier?
We don't have any expectations as long as it follows the template, which we specify on the website and also on CodeOcean. If it follows the template, we're good to go. So it's easy to run, and we don't have any issues with it. Yeah.
Okay. And so code is one thing, but what you talked a little bit earlier is data is equally important, right? And especially if authors are working on proprietary or non-public data sets, what are your expectations in terms of what data should be made available by the authors?
This is a great question, and it touches upon the core of the journal. We were a data science journal. It's all about data, right? So we've thought about this issue for a long time. In an ideal world, in an ideal scenario, we want to have access to all of the real data. We want to have everything, the real data, the real code, and everything runs exactly as in the paper. Of course, we realize that is certainly not always possible. So things that could occur, as you mentioned, licensing issues, NDAs, privacy concerns, the data set size may be too big. There's all sorts of issues that could pop up. So we do provide provisions for that. So we have certain cases that we describe on the website and submission guidelines for that. To give you one concrete example here, you could, for instance, choose to subsample a data set if you think that data set is too big. If the data set is privacy sensitive, maybe you can anonymize it. If a data set that you collected required a lot of effort or resources and it's very valuable to you, maybe you can create a synthetic data set that follows the same data distribution. The absolute minimum standard, this is really the baseline of baselines. The minimum that we want is we want to have kind of a minimal viable product, meaning we want to have code that runs. So you could provide even a toy data set if you want. Of course, we want to avoid that scenario, but it's possible to do that as well.
Wonderful. I think you touched upon a little bit on that, but typically machine learning algorithms, the results or how the parameters are chosen, like you're talking about earlier as well, depends on the large data sets that might be non-public. So making it synthetic. So there's a balance between trying to choose the right algorithm, right data set, and marrying them is actually hard by itself. And now making the data also accessible is a harder thing. So how do you manage that? What suggestions do you have for the authors for that?
So the limitations are actually quite low in terms of code capsules. So we do support quite a lot of data. I don't remember the exact limits right now, and I'm sure by the time this video comes out, maybe they changed it and increased it already. So it's a couple of gigabytes. So it's not nothing, right? It's quite big. If it's bigger enough, we've had authors share their data via Google Drive. That also works. You could connect with that. And another maybe more difficult question is, if you change the data set, the parameters also change. I think you were alluding to that, right?
Right.
For that, I don't think we have a good solution for that beyond just saying that data science is mostly about process. So as long as the process is replicable, it should be okay, right?
That's wonderful. That's wonderful.